Hi everybody, this is the first video in a series of videos on a new channel that I've made called Adventure Reading. It's not a guilty pleasure of mine at all that I love to read adventure books, and so I made this video about how to read adventure books. And it's less of a how-to guide than it is a what-to guide. Adventure books, can be subdivided into several subgenres. And like C.S. Lewis's, reasonably famous advice, can be divided into old stories and new stories, and can be divided into several categories. And like C.S. Lewis, I'm going to recommend that you read some older stuff first, and then some newer stuff, and then some older stuff, and then some newer stuff, and alternate, because there's a lot of value in some of this early adventure fiction, just as there's a lot of value in modern adventure fiction. I don't know. When I think of adventure, I think of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Temple of Doom and so on and so forth. But the genre is much bigger than that. So I've divided it up into some subgenres. I want to give examples of those subgenres. And then in the description down below, I'm going to include some Goodread ratings for those examples, along with what their price is on not on Goodreads. The ratings I'm going to get from Goodreads, the prices I'm going to get from Amazon. Okay, so the first kind of adventure novel or adventure book that I'm going to talk about is I took some notes here, so I actually prepared. So my vision's not great, so I'm going to do my best here. So what is an adventure novel? To begin with, an adventure book, it has to do with a journey. Almost always has to do with someone going on a quest. There's always danger involved. There's usually discovery involved. But the most important thing, at least in the really good adventure books, is there's a theme of personal transformation. You don't go on an adventure and come back unchanged, but you do always come back home at the end of it. And home hasn't changed very much, but you have. And as a result of you having changed, home might seem different. It's kind of like reading a book when you're 25 and then reading the same book again when you're 55. You might think it's a different book, but it's the same book. The reader is one that is different. But anyway, the first kind of adventure book that I want to talk about is the Lost World adventure. Okay, and I think everybody's kind of aware of what a lost world is. A lost world is a place somewhere on the planet where there's still dinosaurs and stuff. And, examples of Lost World books, one of them is King Solomon's Mines by H. Rider Haggard. And King Solomon's Mines, great novel. It's where we first are introduced to Alan Quatermain, which is a fascinating character, and is in quite a few of H. Rider Haggard's novels. So yeah, that's definitely one worth looking at. It's in the public domain, so you can find a copy of it for free online. You don't have to look for it too hard. You can even find a downloadable copy of it on Project Gutenberg and download it to your Kindle once. Anyway, great entertaining book. Keep in mind it was written a long time ago, so attitudes about race and racial stereotypes have changed a lot since then. A more modern version of a Lost World novel is Congo by Michael Crichton. And Lost World books aren't as popular as they used to because, let's face it, we've explored a lot of if not all, of the planet, unless you believe in crazy stuff like comic book artist Neil Adams does, and you believe in stuff like Hollow Earth or whatever. But yeah, Lost World novel would be usually considered a great example of an adventure book. The second category I have on here is a treasure hunt. And one of the nice things about it being the second one on the list is there's a lot of overlap. King Solomon's Mines isn't just a Lost World novel. They are on a treasure hunt. They are hunting for treasure. And but it's not one of the examples I've got here. Obviously, we know what treasure is, and we know what it means to hunt for treasure. The quintessential treasure hunt novel would be Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, which I think a lot of us probably read in school. It's terrific. I'm pretty sure it's in the public domain, but if you haven't read Treasure Island, you definitely should. A more modern version of treasure hunt novel would be Sahara by Clive Cussler. And many Clive Cussler novels, if not most of them, are involved in treasure hunts. And My Aunt Martha was a fan of Clive Cussler novels, and she was a great reader. And she was also a reader who liked to read a classic one week and then a modern book next. Classic one week and then a modern week. And she read about a book a week. So yeah, that's number 2. Number 3 is a survival novel or survival book. I keep saying novel, but these aren't necessarily fictional. Adventure books can be nonfiction as well. And so examples of survival, Call of the Wild by Jack London is really, really great example of a book about survival. It's also really, really short, and it's really unusual in terms of its point of view and its narrator. And I'm not going to say any more about that because I really want you to read it for yourself. Jack London's a great writer, by the way, so you should definitely check that out. A more modern example of a survival novel would be The Martian by Andy Weir. I wasn't crazy about The Martian, but everybody else seems to like it, so I should probably give it another chance. But it is definitely a book about someone trying to survive, and in terms of inhospitable climates that you want to survive in, it's going to be pretty hard to find something less hospitable than Mars. I mean, they're out there, but we're probably not going there. So survival. Number 4, nautical and sea adventures. Okay, so these are the kinds of books you'd expect Captain Kirk from Star Trek to be reading, okay? I think everybody knows what a nautical adventure is or a sea adventure. You know, the classic older version of that, Moby Dick by Herman Melville, is also a good example of how highbrow literature can also be an example of lowbrow literature too. I mean, you know, Moby Dick can be read as a straight up adventure novel, and it's good. It's a good adventure novel. And then if you want something a little more modern, Master and Commander by Patrick O'Brien is also, it's the first in a series of nautical and sea adventures. So, you know, you might want to give those a try and see what you think. The next category I have here are historical adventures. I've got a friend who just loves historical fiction, so I'm sure he's probably thrilled that I've included this one. Examples of these include The Three Musketeers. The Three Musketeers, of course, was written by Alexandre Dumas, so it was originally written in French. It is in the public domain. It's probably fairly easy to find a decent translation of it for free that you can download to your e-reader. And if you're looking for a more modern example of historical adventure, The Eagle of the Ninth, which is written by, I can't read my own handwriting there, but yeah, The Eagle of the Ninth would be the one to, or The Edge of the Ninth, or The Edge of the Ninth. The Eagle of the Ninth is the name of it. Please forgive me. I'm getting older and I have a little bit of chemo brain. I don't know. My daughters claim I have dementia, but that's not true. So historical adventure. The next category would be exploration, a novel of exploration. See how I mean? Almost any of the books or subgenres that we've talked about up until now have involved exploration. The classic example of an exploration novel would be Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne, which I know a lot of my friends on BookTube really enjoy. A more modern example of an exploration book would be The Lost City of Z. I don't know the name of the author of that one, but I see that one referred to all the time. It's real popular. Adventure fiction hasn't gone anywhere. You know, it's been around for quite a while, and I don't expect it to go anywhere. Swashbuckler fiction. Okay, again, another example of overlap. The Three Musketeers is definitely a novel about swashbuckling, but it is a historic thing too. The Scarlet Pimpernel would be an example of a novel about swashbucklers, a classic one. And then a more modern version would be The Princess Bride by William Goldman, which is absolutely fantastic. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it the first time I read it, and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed a reread of it. And we're getting close to the end here, but you can probably slice and dice these categories in a number of other ways, and if you want to, be sure to post something down in the comments. Number 4 here is space adventure, okay? Now, I mentioned Star Trek earlier, but yeah, adventure set in outer space would definitely qualify as adventure, but you've got overlap with science fiction here. And a good example of that from a classic novel would be A Princess of Mars, which is start of the the Mars books by Edgar Rice Burroughs, who's probably better known for creating Tarzan the Ape Man. Those are also adventure novels. But Princess of Mars is a really great book, and the subsequent books in that series are great. That's an example of what they call sword and planet fiction. I'm a big fan of sword and planet fiction. But a newer example of a space adventure is Old Man's War by John Scalzi, which is absolutely terrific. It's set in a future where once you turn 75 years old, you get the option to get a brand new body. You know, they make you a cloned body that's perfect, and not just perfect, but it's young and it's enhanced. It's better than your old body was. But you also have to agree to serve in the military for a couple of years in space. So it's about these 75-year-olds who suddenly have newly young bodies and are enjoying those, but who are also going off to space. And I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a really good book. I haven't read the rest of the series. The second book, The Ghost Brigades, didn't do much for me, and so I never got any further than the first one. But yeah, if you haven't read Old Man's War, it's really good. And then finally, the last one I have on here, if space adventure is a category, fantasy adventure's got to be a category too. And of course, the classic example of that would be The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. But The Lord of the Rings would also be a fantasy adventure. The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, that would be an example of fantasy adventure too. A more modern version might be The Black Tongue Thief, which I have a copy of but haven't read yet. But I'm going to, and I'll probably talk about it on this channel, because this channel is your home for adventure books and adventure reading. That's the only thing that I plan to cover on this particular channel. And I hope you liked the first video. I hope you'll be back for more adventure and more hijinks and more fun. And please, definitely leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what kind of adventure reading you like or what brought you to this particular video. And I'll be probably posting here, 3 times a week or so. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.